Welcome, everybody, to the latest episode of Union Federation here on the Fandom Podcast Network and the BQN Network. Of course, we are the show that brings you all the Star Trek and Orville news that is going on out there. And of course, we are in the season of Lower Decks, season 4 to be precise, as we continue our coverage 2 episodes at a time of Lower Decks in its latest season. But you know what? As crazy as Lower Decks is, it does require me to have more than one crew member here on the Union Federation. And I've got to start out with our top-notch security officer who, he might pull a little hair out during these Lower Deck seasons. Things get a little crazy, but he's still very good at it. My co-founder of the Fandom Podcast Network, my brother from another mother, the one and only Mr. Kevin Reitzel.
Hey, what's going on? I had to get off the Cerritos. Some crazy Betazoid women were just wreaking havoc. I got out of there just in time.
Trust me, I'm actually wishing I was back on because I'm still on Ferengi, and it's a little crazy. They have these commercials. I don't know, but somebody who seems to conquer every away mission she goes on, and it's kind of weird because she comes back and brings a bunch of stuff with no bones. I don't quite understand what's going on there. Maybe she's willing to explain it this time around. She is our ship's weapons officer, but she's also our top-notch science officer. She might know a thing or two about a Moopsie. I don't know, but Miss Haley Stoddard.
Hello, I'm glad to be here. Luckily, I have memorized everybody's names, so I know the entire crew, which is really good. Good for me and good for you guys, all at the same time.
I don't know, Kevin. We might have to put her in the program before the episode is out. We have got a great episode of Union Federation ahead as we're going to be talking the latest 2 episodes of Lower Decks. If I could talk. Empathological Fallacies and Parth Ferengi's Heart Place. But before that, guys, we have a little bit of news to talk about. Guys, Mike McMahon was recently interviewed, and he had some interesting things to say about the possible future of Star Trek Lower Decks. He was quoted saying, "If you love Lower Decks as much as I do, I would say make sure to watch it and get people to watch it now. A letter writing campaign after a show gets canceled, it's helpful, but what's more helpful is campaigning to get more eyes on the show when it's airing, because it gives me the ability to push for more seasons. I would love to finish Lower Decks with the plan that I have for it. I would say take Prodigy looking for a new network and take a look at Picard being wrapped at season 3 and at Discovery wrapping as well. I would say read those as signs that if you want more Lower Decks, you should be vocal about it now and not wait." He went on to say, listen, we're in weird times. Everything is changing. I think everything's going to continue to change. I would say nothing is safe. I don't have any bad news for anybody, but also I think you shouldn't assume that this stuff is going to stick around unless you vocally and watch it early on. I do not know if we're going to have another season after the season we're working on right now, which is season 5. Lower Decks could very well be a 5-season show. These are kind of have a little bit of an ominous feeling, but also considering the way some shows have been treated as the strikes have gone on, and even though we are out of the writer strike, the actor strike is still going on. And I know several shows that have been that were actually ticketed for renewal now having turned around and be canceled, Star Trek Prodigy being one of them. I got to wonder if maybe season 5 isn't going to be it for Lower Decks, Kevin.
I wish I had 5 seasons of the Orville. I'll tell you that right now. And it's interesting how he's saying you got to watch this stuff as it airs, because that's when the suits are paying attention to the numbers, the streaming numbers. I remember when the Orville moved to Disney Plus here in the States, there was a campaign, put on by fans and pushing it, like ourselves here, get on there and stream that show. Let Disney know that we love this show. And that's what he's basically saying here. Don't wait to stream these things. Watch them when they come out, because the people that are going to make the cut decisions or the extension decisions are going to be paying it. They want to know what's happening with it now. They don't want to look at it, later on and notice the rise, because they got to make decisions. And that is an ominous note saying, if you like Lower Decks, the loudest voice that you can have is by streaming it and making sure other people are doing it when it drops.
Haley, it's kind of a weird time because I look at a lot of things, and I think we're kind of in a shifting ground of how we are getting our media, but also after these strikes and how everything happens, I think these studios are going to be looking at different approaches to things. And I know I've talked to a lot of people who talked about some franchise burnout. And I look at Star Trek, for example. I mean, Picard's now finished. Prodigy's been canceled. Discovery is wrapping up after this next season. The Section 31, which was supposed to be a show, is now only going to be a movie. We apparently have Star Trek Starfleet Academy coming. After that, nothing else outside of Strange New Worlds is confirmed. And even now, we still don't know when we're going to actually see season 3 of Strange New Worlds. Is it possible that because of the strikes and because of just how people are just looking at different things, that some of these bigger franchises like a Star Trek, Star Wars, Marvel are going to see a little less quantity because the studios just aren't willing to put the money into them, and could be Lower Decks be something that's on the chopping block because of that?
Yeah, this is an interesting thing because it does very much sound like he's kind of being like, hey, just a warning. But I think as fans of anything, any show anymore, you have to look at it as these aren't lasting. I mean, how many shows have recently come about where there's just a few seasons and that's it? Whether it was on TV first before all the streaming kind of really took off or not. And I think, the streaming has an impact on it, as well as the strikes that are ongoing. I think that's got a big impact on it. But I also think it's just this ever evolving dynamic where so many people are streaming that maybe it's not a burnout per se, but because people binge through it, they're like, okay, I feel like I've gotten my fill. And so maybe a lot of these people that are higher up that make these decisions say, hey, let's just do a few seasons and then let's move on to something different and let's bring out something different. And I think that's just where it's going. I mean, again, we've talked about this before, where we grew up in a time frame where, seasons were 26, 27, 28 episodes. And, it was just a consistent thing. And so I think there's this aspect of, I want it now and I want it instantly. And that's really, really changing the dynamic of television and how shows are made, that they're shorter seasons. We get 10, maybe 15 episodes or some number in there. And yeah, we're only getting 3, 4, 5 seasons. And then they feel that they've told the story, whether it's super popular or not. So it's just this weird dynamic, I guess, because I think part of it is maybe too, they want to make so many stories that they figure if we just do shorter, truncated seasons, we can make more stories about different things. Star Trek has always kind of been a sufferer of television. And, we've been super lucky as fans to have all these different types of shows airing recently, and it's wonderful. But I think, again, we should look at it as it's not always going to last. There's not always going to be something to be written about. And also, have that disappointment. And it's okay to be disappointed that something's been canceled. It sucks. And it's sometimes we can look at it as fans and say, well, that's just stupid. But we do have to remember these aren't written for us necessarily, and these have to bring in money or they don't continue to be made. So there's a lot more to it, I think, than a lot of people realize.
Kevin, real quick, I do want to ask you, because one of the things I've noticed, especially in the streaming world, is we're starting to get away from everything dropping so you can binge it. A lot of things are going back to, maybe they drop a couple, maybe the first 2 or 3 episodes, and then everything else is weekly after that. Star Trek has kind of stayed that mode where everything has been weekly since it started on streaming. But also, we just are coming out of a period, Kevin, too, where we literally almost went a full year and a half where every week there was a Star Trek, some form of Star Trek to watch on our television. Are we kind of getting to that point where it's like, okay, we need to reassess this and how much of this product we're putting out?
Possibly. I think it's a smart move, though, for these shows to go weekly because it keeps them relevant longer, other than the Netflix thing where they like to drop them all at once. And I think that's important to also for the streaming numbers as well. But if the show's not good, then it doesn't matter. However, I don't know if the writer strike and the actor strike is also giving the Suits pause to also reevaluate how money is spent, because they may come to a conclusion in an agreement with the writers and the actors, whether it be percentage or whatever it is. But now that they're expected to pay more, how does that go forward on budgeting for future things and stuff like that? So there's a lot of competition for streaming right now as well. And if you were to do a show like Lower Decks and drop it all at once, I don't think that that would be fair to the show and to the fans, because I don't know if the buzz around it would last very long. So I mean, Haley, when you're talking about having those shows be between, like, I miss those days of 22 to 24 episodes, and it lasts for almost a whole. It was almost like it was a summer. You wouldn't watch it. You'd watch
September to May,
and it was great. It took up most of the year. You kept talking about the show. You got excited for it. It was appointment television. I miss those days. I really, really do, and I miss having all these extra episodes to be able to watch. So and I miss the more episodic approach to a lot of these shows as well. But yeah, Kyle, it's interesting to see how things are going to go with this recent strike and how that's going to affect things. But I think it's smart to keep these shows weekly.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. I'm going to circle back to this conversation after we review the episodes. There's a point I want to bring up about Lower Decks in particular, but I want to get into the episodes. So, guys, with that, spoiler alert. We are going to be diving deep into episodes 5 and 6 of Lower Decks. Hard to believe we're already there.
Make the noise. Make the noise.
I was going to ask you if you wanted to hit the button, Kevin.
Kevin, for that
button. We have 2 very interesting, fun episodes of Lower Decks to discuss, starting with season 4, episode 5, Empathological Fallacies. Mr. Reitzel, our counselor, Amy, who I really wish could have joined us, but she had a commitment to her own family this evening. This episode was for her, and I wish she was here, but would you care to give us the Admiral's Log synopsis for this episode, sir?
I believe you also have a poem here. Did you want me to read that as well?
Actually, no. I would like to. I put this in here for a reason. So, a little poetry corner before we get started. Worf, torn between worlds. A warrior, no a farm boy. The son of Moog. Clang goes the batleth against the armor of your heart. I just feel more at peace for this podcast now.
All right. Season 4, episode 5. Let's see if I can say this right. Empathological Fallacies. Here we go. The Cerritos escorts 3 boisterous Betazoid diplomats. T'Lyn finds their behavior and her time on the ship distasteful, and drafts a message requesting to be allowed to return to her former ship. The Cerritos crew begins behaving in an unhinged manner, and Freeman suspects the Betazoids have xanthi fever, a telepathic disease that affects others' emotions. The Betazoids, objecting to Freeman's treatment of them, reveal themselves as undercover intelligence officers and seize control of the ship. T'Lyn realizes that her conflicting emotions over her transfer are being telepathically projected to the ship, which further convinces her that she's a failure as a Vulcan. Mariner helps restore her self-confidence, which helps T'Lyn quell her emotions and return the crew to normal. She does not send her message. Meanwhile, an overtaxed Boimler goes to train with the security team, but finds their activities to be silly recreational games. He later witnesses the security crew easily handle the Betazoid threat. Shax tells Boimler that they were trying to help him relax, since being a protector also means protecting the crew's mental state. Before leaving, the Betazoid agents share an image of a mysterious vessel that has been attacking other ships.
Okay, guys, first reactions to this episode. Haley, I'm going to start with you first because apparently the betazoids know how to party.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to be fair, they had just left. Yes, that's right. We got an Angel One reference, people, which is interesting. I mean, unless there's been a lot of change to the planet Angel One, I can't imagine that it's this massive party planet. But hey, whatever. This was an interesting episode. There was kind of a lot going on. I loved the B plot more than I loved the A plot.
The Boimler?
Yep.
What you wanted to be part of the program, did you now?
No, it honestly was just this message of Boimler is anxious and always super worried. And I really love this idea that he needs to learn to relax, because psyching yourself out and making yourself more anxious and stressed is not going to make you more productive. And trying to do all the things is not going to make you more productive. You're not going to get things done efficiently and accurately. And you have to take care of yourself. And I love that message. That was really, really top notch.
Kevin, what about you? Your first reactions to the episode?
Not a fan of it, to be honest with you. The old Betazoid, or Vulcan, I've got a disease, I'm going to affect the entire ship type thing. That trope's really kind of wearing me out, I'll be honest with you. And as much as I love the voice talent behind the characters, I found these women extremely annoying. Rachel Dratch, she was one of the ambassadors. She's, of course, star SNL fame. And then Wendy Malick, famous for Just Shoot Me. And I think she was also in, what was it? That other HBO show that first premiered. I can't remember the name of it now. But I was like, oh, I know those voices. Mm-hmm. I honestly, I was not a fan of this episode. I'm just going to leave it at
that. I kind of agree with you. This episode just felt kind of weak. It was, first of all, you have the whole
Kyle. Real quick, I just want to mention Talin is the only really saving grace of this episode, I think, because I think her character development is really strong, and I did want to mention that. I forgot to mention that part. So.
I agree with you there. I mean, she's been actually a very strong part of this season as a whole. I mean, we even see it. She ends up, of course, in the twist being the cause of what is the telepathy disease that is affecting everybody on the crew, including the Betazoids. But that's kind of interesting to me as well. But yeah, it just this plot just didn't really grab me. I'm kind of with Haley. I enjoyed a little bit more of the B plot here. This was just. It just felt like, okay, we're just going to throw an episode together, be crazy, and be done with it. And this is kind of a little bit of a concern for me, actually, because this is what I've seen Mike McMahon do kind of a little bit, even with Rick and Morty, is in later seasons. It was like, oh, we're just throwing an episode out there to throw an episode out there. And it just really didn't work for me. I have to admit, I like you, Haley, I was more of a fan of the B plot and putting Boimler in the program, seeing how stressed Boimler was. I liked the stuff they did with the security. I thought that was actually much more entertaining than everybody partying it up and having all of this craziness. And there's just something about Shaxx and security whenever they get thrown into this in their own like weird security religion way. I find that much more entertaining, Haley.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, they have got the most stressful job on the ship, right? They're security. And being that, you can equate that to our military, you can equate that to our police officers, our first responders, our firemen, EMTs. They have high stressful, high stake jobs. And if you don't take care of your mental state and your own health, physical and mental and emotional, by whatever means necessary that works for you, you are ineffective and you are going to cause more of a problem when you need to actually be performing at your peak. And so I really loved this, Boimler's getting thrown in, and he thinks it's just stupid and ridiculous because he doesn't know how to relax, and he needs to learn how to, because you can't be an efficient leader. I mean, he's in a red shirt. He wants to be captain someday. He wants to be in charge of a whole ship full of people. And if he's going to be so anxious and so stressed out, he's going to make decisions that are going to put more people's lives in jeopardy than it's worth. And so I love this notion of, hey, we have slam poetry and we do puzzles and we play card games and we go into this part of the ship that's quiet and apparently is unaffected by what was going on with Talin, this Bendai syndrome, essentially. And so I love that aspect because you have to take care of yourself. I mean, everybody should, but people who are in these high stake positions where they care for others and have to do so much, if you're not at your best when you have to be, you're more of a danger and a threat to everyone around you. And I loved that. I think that was brilliant.
Kevin, my question for you is, are you taking the puzzle or are you taking the tarot cards?
Probably the tarot cards. My mom used to read tarot cards to me. By the way, I was getting a flashback to my many visits to Vegas of all of the party girls with those big long drinks.
Yes, right. I was telling Chloe that I was like, yeah, those drink things actually do exist in Vegas.
Yeah, they're usually attached to very, very annoying people. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. New Orleans is known for them too, and actually down here in Florida at Universal Studios because of Margaritaville.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
They are present. But guys, I have a little bit of Star Trek trivia for us to hit on this episode. Couple interesting things that I found, and this one is, I don't know, it's kind of disturbing. According to one of the Betazoid passengers in the ancient times, Catians used to hunt and eat Betazoids.
This is the cat doctor species, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay. That's weird.
Yeah. Then they played up on this episode, and luckily Shax knows the tricks to getting our good doctor calmed down. So, in a background scene in which the Cerritos crew is acting out, Big Burp can be seen wearing one of those dangerous pleasure center devices introduced in Star Trek's The Next Generation, the game, season 5, episode 6.
Speaking of background, did you notice in the party, the I don't know, their version of the 10 Forward, there was that couple that was just like continuously making out on the table, and then they're like slowly sliding off screen. Just like,
yep.
What the hell?
Yep.
Always a party on the
In a room.
They're in a room. They're in a room, Kevin.
Yeah. Apparently nobody, I think a lot of other people really didn't care either. They were just there for the party.
Yeah, I mean, how many people ended up just in their undies? Like, seriously. Oh, boy.
So, okay. So, we're speaking of Big Merp. There are now 3 members of the unknown blue-skinned race seen on the Cerritos, with names all variations of Merp, a.k.a. Towel Guy, including Big Merp and Sleepy Merp. There's a lot of Merp on the Cerritos. I think we need to look into this. And finally, Talin is 62 years old, and I have to agree with Mariner. She looks great, by the way. So,
I think that would be, I mean, Vulcans live very, very long, and they age very, very slowly. And in thinking about that, because I had a client the other day, did not believe that I am 40 and will be 41 in a month. They were very much like, no, you're in your 20s. I call myself Vulcan all the time. Clearly I am, because I don't look my age either.
I get that too.
Okay, guys, I think it's safe to say that this episode was not exactly one that was a hit for any of us across the board. It had some moments in it, but it was just kind of lacking. So with that, we're going to get out of Away Mission 1, and we're going to go into Away Mission 2, which I think is going to have some familiar faces to it. Guys, we're going to season 4, episode 6 review. Ferengnar, Parth Ferengi's Heart Place. For familiar faces in this. Ferengnar, the dangers of Ferengnar, many of a temptation on Ferengnar. I think this was a much improved episode compared to the last one. But Mr. Reitzel, would you care to give us the episode synopsis?
I would love to. All right. Episode 6, Lower Decks, Parth Ferengi's Heart Place. All right. A Ferengi ship is attacked by the mysterious vessel as planned by one of its unfortunate crew who is also caught in the blast. Meanwhile, Captain Freeman is tasked with aiding a Starfleet admiral with formalizing the agreement to approve the Ferengi joining the Federation. This is big, actually. But is ignored when she senses that the Grand Nagus Rom and First Clerk Lita are conning them. As the admiral falls deeper into the altered terms of their agreement, Freeman cons them back with an impossible deal, which garners their respect. Rom and Lita agree to the original terms of the Federation, earning the admiral's thanks. Meanwhile, Ransom assigns the group travel guide duty, allowing them to enjoy the pleasures of Ferenginar, but Mariner is irritated by his unflagging support. Meeting up with their friend Quimp, she gets drunk and causes senseless fights until Quimp calls her out on her tantrum, telling her that she should accept being in a good place for once in her career. Boimler plans on an ambitious sightseeing agenda, but becomes entranced by Ferengi television. Tendi and Rutherford are asked to pose as a married couple as part of their assignment, but find the romantic experience awkwardly too close to home.
Okay, guys. First reactions to this episode. I enjoy. I'm just gonna say this one. I definitely enjoyed this one a lot more than the previous episode. But Kevin, what were your first reactions to this episode?
Yeah, I'm with you there. This one was fun. Enjoyed this a lot more. I'm a huge fan of Ferengi episodes, especially on Deep Space Nine. I enjoy the Ferengis. They're funny. I love the Ferengi culture. I love their rules of acquisition, and I love it when you see people kind of either outcon them or take advantage of them because they're used to doing that. There's a couple of things that jumped out at me. First of all, I got to have one of those Ferengi ears cup holder things that Mariner had. That was fantastic. That made me laugh out loud. But this episode did something that I was kind of hoping would be called out. And that is the sense that Boimler has of not getting promoted. And I like the fact that of all people, an old Ferengi friend calls her out on it. And I like that, she's being coached to be a better leader, because I was kind of getting tired of her antics of not, wanting to either piss people off, start fights, whatever it is that you want to do, but not start taking, I feel like she hasn't really been following her own advice that she's been giving her friends, I think, in a certain sort of way, I guess.
I think she likes having the turmoil in her own life because it gives her an excuse, and now she has that.
Yeah, and that's growing tiresome for me, to be perfectly honest with you. And so that's why I like this episode. In addition to all the Ferengi fun, I like the fact that she gets called out on her crap, and I think I would like to see her take a little more leadership role and accept it and embrace it. I think that would be kind of cool. I want to see that character development, basically. And I don't know how to say this without sounding creepy and weird. I found Tendi kind of hot in her dress.
She was working the dress. Come on. She was working the dress.
I'm kind of crushing on Tendi. There, I said it, okay? I'm crushing on an animated character. It's taking me back to Robotech, Kyle. I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. I can't.
Haley, don't think of me different, please.
No, not at all.
I mean, she's not Captain Shiny Pants to you, but she was looking really cute. I'm just going to say.
Understood.
What about you, Haley? Are you ready for your trip down to Ferengi?
Oh, cool. You have a picture of the Ferengi ears. I love that.
I definitely, I I like the weather because it's always raining. That's super great. But I'm not ready for my trip to Fringernar. But I did really enjoy this episode. Again, I think this one of the two had more storyline to it that was interesting and intriguing. And again, Boimler has this big ambitious plan and he ends up not doing it, and he then apologizes. Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't do what we were supposed to. And Ransom, rather than tearing him down for it, he says, that's okay. Like, hey, good job anyway. Like, you did something. And I'm hoping that Boimler is kind of getting this in his head now that he needs to relax a little and not be so harsh and critical on himself, because it's not helping his dynamic of when he does get put in charge of missions. So I really liked that, he sillily got sucked into Ferengi television and the commercials and how he would not know that there's still advertising that exists. I don't get it. You'd think there would still be advertising in the 24th century, but I really love that aspect, again, of his character, and hopefully getting that growth. And then we also got the light whip thing from whatever episode of TNG in season 1. That was great.
Was that the last outpost? Is that what it was?
It might be.
I can't remember.
I'm really bad with episode titles.
Yeah.
I know that much. So that was fun, like at the end, to see those whips come out. And again, I think, Mariner, like you're saying, Kevin, I'm really hoping that she's getting the lesson that it's okay to grow up. It's okay to be responsible and feel like you are deserving of it. And I think that's her biggest thing. She doesn't feel like she deserves it. And so she's always trying to self-sabotage. So I'm hoping that she'll get that. And obviously, there's going to be something developing between Tendi and Rutherford. Just saying.
I
mean, it's kind of forced it, but yeah.
I had one little issue, a character issue in this episode, though, Kyle. And I want to kind of get your thoughts on this. Knowing from what I've seen from Deep Space Nine, knowing what I know from Chase Masterson, because I know Chase, I've actually met her before, very sweet lady. I didn't buy the fact that she's now more Ferengi than she is Bajoran. She was the one that kind of like grounded Rom, Max Grodenchik, by the way. And I love that they were guests in this, and they, Rom's obviously the big Nagus now, but I just don't see Lita becoming more. I understand that she would have her husband's interests, but she was just acting way too Ferengi for me. That was my only issue. I don't know if they should have done that.
We're gonna get to that in a little bit, Kevin. So just bear with me. I'll give you my answer on that a little bit. But I do have a question for you, Kevin, because Haley mentioned it, how rainy it was on Ragnar. I'm like, this place could have filled in for the background city of Blade Runner. I just said that.
Well, I liked in Deep Space Nine that they were always that continuity was always going on. It was always rainy, always rainy.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought that was kind of funny. So, and I love the sets too that we saw in Deep Space Nine that carried over into the animation of this. I thought that was good.
Yeah. You guys have both talked about it with the Mariner situation, and I just want to kind of echo. I agree. I think this is part of Mariner's trip this season, is going from this person who just knows nothing but self-sabotage for whatever reasons, and actually learning to accept success. And I'm hoping maybe this is the episode where we start turning the corner on her uncomfortableness with it somewhat, and we see Mariner actually taking some steps forward, because she really doesn't have Boimler's growing on his own, and she really doesn't need to give him quite the support that she used to. And I think she's just having as much time accepting moving up the ranks too, because I think it was always kind of her way of rebelling against her mother as well, and now she's got a better relationship with her mother. So I think this is kind of an interesting development with Mariner. But I found this episode really interesting because you got a little bit of story for each of our crew, because here we have this whole Rutherford Tendi situation, and there you go, Kevin. I was thinking of you, Tindy, in the dress, but I mean, they've played up on a little bit of this in past seasons too, and how they just like but the minute they get kind of in any kind of romantic situation, they get really awkward with each other. But as long as they keep it science-y,
I thought it was really
accurate.
Cute. Yeah. I thought it was really cute though when Rutherford says that she looked captivating and she blushes. I thought that was really cute.
Yeah, no, I think this was definitely one of those ones. It's like, will you just get it over with? And then the whole thing with the doctor I thought was hilarious.
Well, I would kind of hope that something like that does develop in Lower Decks, because that was one of the things that I like about Star Trek in general. Is I like romance in Star Trek. I like that we saw the Riker and Deanna thing go on, and the stuff with Picard and his mini liaisons. I want to see that happen here, and I would like it if they actually became an item. I would root for that.
And of course, everything with Boimler commercials. Yeah, with Boimler, I can almost see this. He grew up on a vineyard. He's been in Starfleet. I don't think there's a lot of commercials in Starfleet at this point. So I found that interesting, and to see him get sucked in. And Kevin, I'm sorry, but I have this envisionment of you looking like this after binge watching several movies to get ready for Time Warp.
Oh my God, yes, that's like a self-portrait of me right there. Jeez, except I don't wear tidy whities. I wear
I feel like there's been mornings Aaron has woken up and found you like this.
Yeah, that's a good self-portrait right there. I'll hang that one on my wall right there. That's a good one. That's funny.
I actually really enjoyed this, and come on, the landlord cops show. I mean, I'm in on that, Kevin. Are we supposed
I want to watch all of those Ferengi shows. Those were entertaining.
Everybody loves everybody.
Oh man, those are great. I love those.
I need the Ferengi 24-hour TV app.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But guys, there was a second side to this episode too, and again, we saw a couple familiar faces from DS9 with Rom here, and of course the lovely Chase Masterson. But this was so much fun, and to answer your question, Kevin, I think what they're kind of playing up on is the two of them have worked out this act, especially when it came to dealing with the Federation. Rom just really playing up the stupid, while Leela kind of just figures out everything, kind of just explains everything and plays the smart one. And it's all part of this hustle they're doing, and I could see it over time. I mean, I'm not sure how far after from DS9 this episode takes place, but I can see her just backing her man, and she's smart. She always, one of the things with her, if I'm remembering DS9 correctly, because it's been a while, she always played up dumber than she actually was. She kind of
which is why this doesn't make sense to me.
They shared a look. So when like the captain and the admiral are talking to each other, they shared a look between them of like, haha, we got them where we want them. So like Captain Freeman was right. They're playing, dumb cop, dumber cop kind of thing. And so they were definitely playing it up. And so I think Kyle's right. I think, it was more of she was playing this role because that's, what they intended of coming and doing, by presenting the admiral with this bust and then charging him like, here's how much you owe us, because we all know that Rom, as in earlier in the episode with the Ferengi ship, he's changed the way that Ferengi work. And, because of Lita and because of her opening his eyes. So I think it's just kind of a little silly. Yes, it's not true to who she was in DS9, but it's just this little silly play of like, hey, we're going to, play with these guys. And then, Freeman catches on.
And I like the aspect they had once Freeman caught on, and how she tricks him. And Rom's like, yeah, I was just playing with you. Yeah, let's do the contract right. And it because you showed me respect, unlike the other captain who just bent to his will, and he was basically going dance puppet. But I also love the fact that they did play up on Rom loving baseball so much, and that little Easter egg from DS9 as well. I thought that was fun. I love the portrayal, and I loved how they had this admiral just dance, puppet dance, and Freeman was just shaking her head the whole time and just walks in like 30 seconds and just changes the whole thing. And I that's one of the things I love about when they do Captain Freeman like this is you see her as a strong captain and how capable she really is when the hierarchy above her may not get the full picture. So I really enjoyed that too. But guys, I do have a little. Yep. Yes, Miss Haley.
Just one thing. So when Kevin was reading the synopsis, I don't think that Ferengi Lower Decks crewman was intending or planned on the ship that came and destroyed them, because my guess is no one's had communication with whatever is destroying them. I think he was planning on someone coming because they're talking about all these weapons. I think he was going to sell, and he had planned to sell them, and that's who he thought was showing up.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think that's a fair point. But guys, I'm going to warp us out because I got a little trivia for this episode. So I found a few interesting tidbits on this episode. The movement of Ferengi culture away from illegal to legitimate business, as seen in the teaser where the Ferengi courier is dumping its weapons, is a direct continuation of the reforms that put into place by Grand Nagus Zek and continued by Grand Nagus Rom from the Space Nine, like brought up immediately. So picking that up. The 24th century, the Genesis device is apparently being used to terraform planet. They just kick it around like it's nothing. Spread our molecules.
It's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
It's all good. The 60-second rule of acquisition: the riskier the road, the greater the profit, was previously cited in the rules of acquisition, Little Green Men, and Business as Usual.
Little Green Men. I love that episode.
Great one.
Admiral Vassery's comment about Moab 4 and its dome refers to the genetically engineered society seen in the Next Generation episode, The Masterpiece Society. And finally, the Ferengi law enforcement who is sent to round up Boimler at the end of the episode uses the famous energy whip seen in the TNG episode, The Last Outpost, and in the Enterprise episode, Acquisition.
Good job. Good job.
They're so silly, but I love those energy whips. I wouldn't mind having one of those. Yeah, that's good.
Oh, Grand Nagus Zek. That was such a good role. That was awesome.
Okay, guys, we don't have a ready room this week still. I have a feeling we may not get one until maybe the season finale. But I want to bring up something. We opened the show talking about the future of Lower Decks, and I had this little brief conversation with Kevin right before we went on the air. I'm going to ask you now, Haley. I know you have not been the biggest fan of Lower Decks. It's not necessarily your thing, but there's only been, I'm going to say this, I feel like we're maybe in the weakest season of Lower Decks that we've had. There's only been a couple of episodes, this one that we just got done talking about included, that I really feel have stood out. It kind of feels like, I don't want to say Lower Decks has lost its way, but it's lost a little bit of its edge, or it's kind of like struggling to find itself right now. I'm wondering if you guys are picking up on that. Kevin, what do you think?
I agree completely. This has been so far the weakest season of the 4. I know we still got a few more to go, and I get why they're making this mysterious ship make an appearance towards the end or beginning of episodes, destroying these ships, and it's going to become a threat. But I would like if they could get a little more going with it and supportive in these episodes. These episodes to me are feeling a little too disjointed and not related to each other. I don't know. There's been only a couple so far that I've really enjoyed.
Haley, a couple of things, and I want to get your thoughts on this too. One is, I don't know if the promotion thing is actually working for Lower Decks. It was bound to happen. They knew they had to deal with that at some time, but it does feel like it's really kind of changed the vibe. And another thought, and Kevin, I want your thoughts on this particular thing too. Did the live action appearance of Lower Decks of Boimler and Mariner in Strange New Worlds maybe change up our perception of Lower Decks a little bit? Seeing those characters in live action. I'm just throwing it out there because everybody really liked that episode for the most part. But seeing Boimler and Mariner in live action, maybe we look at Lower Decks a little different way, Haley.
Maybe. I mean, I don't necessarily, just because I try to look at everything in the light that it is. And you're right, this has not been my favorite show. There's moments that I enjoy and things like that. One thing I have noticed is um the speed at which everyone talks has been a little bit less, which is kind of nice. I still have to watch with subtitles on. Um and it does feel a little disjointed this season. And I wonder if it's also in part because our main crew, the ones that we know, these characters, they're not just, they're lieutenant junior grades now. And they're still, lower ranking officers, but now they're not like ensigns. They're not the bottom of the bottom. And I wonder if that has in some way unconsciously changed our perception of the show. And perhaps with the writers and everyone who works on it, I wonder if in some fashion, this notion that they've been promoted, even though it's just still pretty low on the ranking scale, they are no longer just ensigns. And so I wonder if that, has maybe made some perceptions a little bit different with the show. But it could be something where maybe they know that they're going to have a fifth season and then they're wrapping it up. I mean, we really don't know on that end, but I wonder if there is that idea that, okay, we're just going to make whatever episodes because we know we can, and we've got to fill these time slots that we've been given, and we know it's ending after season 5. I don't know.
I don't think the crossover and seeing the live action version of Boimler Mariner has really changed anything or anything like that. If anything, I'd like to see more of these characters go into live action. But I think that the one episode that was the crossover has been the best episode if you were to compare it to any of them from season 4 of Lower Decks right now. Just because it was the plot was clever and the way to get them, into the other show was clever as well. I just think that it's just kind of, they've covered so much Easter eggs and references to everything else. I don't know if they're kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel. I don't know, because they've touched on a lot, and they've touched on a lot of cliches and stuff like that. So I don't know. Maybe it's just a little bit of tired writing. I don't know. Maybe.
Let me ask you one other thing. Both of you can weigh on this, but Kevin, I'm specifically asking you this because this is something that we've Lower Decks kind of always had kind of a little bit of an episodic feel. Yes, there was a couple of 2-part episodes, but we do have this dangling plot thread that's been going on since the start of the season. And that's something Lower Decks hasn't had. And that's been kind of one of our knocks on Discovery and even with Picard in somewhat is this continuing plot thread. We love Strange New Worlds because it's episodic. Lower Decks, for the most part, has been episodic. Is this mystery ship storyline been dragging?
Yeah, because it's not developing. All it's doing is blowing up another race's ship every episode.
I mean,
I think there needs to be something more than just that. There needs to be something that keeps us going and allows us to learn more about it before we finally get to the big fight or whatever is going to happen to it.
Haley, what about you? What do you think on that?
I agree. I think, at first it was like, okay, this is interesting. Now it's like, okay, I would still like to know what's going on, but all right. I mean, the only thing we haven't seen it attack is a Federation ship. So now I'm like, is it a Federation ship that's just going around and even attacking people who are our allies too, just so that no one thinks that it's anything, Um, I'm hoping that there's some kind of encounter in like maybe the next episode or 2 of like, "Okay, here's this thing," and we figure out what it is. Because it is a little, "Alright, okay, alright, so it's done another one. Okay, okay."
We've got 4 episodes to build this up
3.
to.
Actually, 7, 8, 9, 10. 4. Yeah, 7,
Right.
8, 9, 10. Well, on that note, guys, I'm gonna transport us into the Orville Prophecy. As we get ready to wrap up this episode of Union Federation, I'm going to take a little bit of a look into the Orville Prophecy because they actually have put out the title of the next episode of Lower Decks coming out this Thursday. And it might be time to start figuring out about the ship because the title of episode 7 is A Few Badgies More.
Oh, Lord.
Kevin, you had a particular shirt you were wearing last week.
Yeah, I might have to wear it next week.
Were you forecasting something? Are you trying to take over the mantle of Oracle from Haley?
Yeah.
I have a feeling this is going to tie into this ship, and I think we're going to start getting some answers. And I have a feeling this ship and what's going on with it is going to be kind of the storyline of these last 4 episodes. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. And
I know what it is.
What
that
is
ship is the Badgie's ship. There's a whole race of them now.
I think that ship is Badgie's ship, but I also think there's another being that's responsible for that ship with Badgie.
Mm.
Can you say peanut hamper?
Mm.
That was the exocomp, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Rise of the AI. This is what happens,
exactly.
people.
Maybe Kevin, maybe it's the sequel to The Creator.
Yeah.
But guys, we have that. We have a few more episodes of Lower Decks, and it's going to be a little break in Trek through the holidays from everything that we can tell, because we're not getting the final season of Discovery until early in 2024. I don't know if that'll be January or February. My guess is probably February, maybe even March, because I have a feeling they're going to not want them run that against the NFL playoffs, but that's just my thinking on that. And then, of course, we have the Starfleet Academy show that's been put into order. Tani Newsom's a writer on that, so that's going to be interesting. We have the Section 31 film that is coming, and there's still the great mystery of, is Star Trek Legacy a real thing or is it not? And so I think that's the big question that we will not get answered until the actor strike is over and the writer strike, and the writers and the actors are moving on and back into production.
It's like Star Trek 4, the movie. It's just not going to happen.
We keep our fingers crossed. But guys, it's time to close out this episode. Kevin, did you have something you wanted to add?
No, it's fingers crossed. I was doing the thing. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I got you, sir. Yeah. Toes, fingers, badgies, they're all crossed. But it's time to get some subspace signals. Okay, guys, this has been the Union Federation podcast here on the Fandom Podcast Network. We hope you've enjoyed this episode as we continue our march through Lower Decks. Of course, you can also find the episode on whether you find it on our YouTube show, which we are recording this for right now, or the podcast version, which you will find not only on the Fandom Podcast Network, but also on the BQN network as well. If you're watching on YouTube, please like, share, subscribe. Let your people out there know what we're doing here on the Fandom Podcast Network YouTube channel. And if you're listening on the podcast too, we thank you so much. Of course, you can find the podcast on all your major podcast catchers, whether it's podbean.com, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, all of them. We're out there for you. Of course, you can also visit the Union Federation on our great Facebook page. You can follow us at Union Fed Pod on Twitter and on Instagram. You can find me, Kyle, on Twitter at AKyleW, or on Instagram and Threads at AKyleFandom. Kevin, where can people find you on social media?
You can find me on Threads, X, and Instagram at Spartan_Phoenix. You can also find me at the Union Federation Facebook page, and you can find me on Facebook as well.
And Haley, I know we can find you on the Union Federation Facebook page, playing with all the buttons and all the new weapons that you get your hands on, and continuing to educate us with science as well. But where else can we find you on social media? Because you've been moving around a lot.
I have been moving around. Yeah. I have some new quarters. So you can find me on Instagram. I am at Trekkie01D. And you can find me if you have made the jump to the lovely blue sky. I am also Trekkie01D. That's right. I own it. Just kidding.
Have you figured out how to do the lighting on Blue Sky yet?
No.
I mean, I don't want you getting blinded by the blue sky nacelle or anything like that.
That it is interesting when I do pop over. Luckily, it's not super bright, but I will definitely have to play with those settings.
Yeah, you never know. You never know what button does what.
I know. Yeah,
that's the fun of it. Of course, you can find Miss Amy Nelson on Twitter at Miss Amy Nelson. I know she is on Blue Sky now, but she has not given me that information yet. Come on, Amy, we need to share. But you can also find her all over the BQN as they're doing great Trek podcasts all over the BQN network as well. And of course, we will be continuing in 2 weeks with our next episode of the Union Federation podcast as we continue on with Lower Decks season 4. Badgie's back, guys. Bad things are coming. I know.
yeah.
And I mean, Haley, there's not even any bones on Badgie for Moopsie to take care of. I mean, we got problems here.
Yeah, it's not good. It's not good.
Mm.
That's for sure.
If Badgie messes with Moopsie, we might have issues.
I don't think he could, honestly.
As long as we keep Moopsie off the holodeck, right?
Yes, for sure.
There you go. I want to thank my amazing crew as always. I can't do this show without you guys. Thank you so much. You make it so much fun to do this, as well as our wonderful listeners.
Good to see you guys.
Mm-hmm.
Until next time, hailing frequencies are now closed.